You show up, you connect, you build bridges, you don't burn them. You stay visible. That's how influence works. That's how legacy gets expanded. It's not about liking everyone in the room. It's about recognizing the value of the room itself.
Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and that you had a great week. Well, another unpredictable schedule means I can't be in front of the camera again today. However, to all my lovely house guests, by all means grab yourselves a drink and make yourselves comfortable. If you're passing by and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i. Welcome to my place. Royal entitlement refers to the rights, titles, privileges and property that individuals possess by virtue of their birth or marriage into a royal family. The concept can be understood in two primary ways. Now, the first way is the formal and legal entitlement, which we kind of looked at in last week's video, so I'm not going to go through all of that. You can see it on the screen. This is the other definition which I want to focus on in today's video. Informal or perceived entitlement. In public discourse, the term entitlement is often used informally and sometimes critically to describe a perceived attitude among some members of the royal family that they are inherently deserving of a highly privileged life, special treatment, deference and wealth without necessarily having earned it through work or merit. In summary, royal entitlement defines what a person is formally allowed to have or do as a member of the royal family, and also reflects a broader societal discussion about the perceived privileges and status associated with that position. Now, obviously, this extends beyond the royal family, but we can expand the conversation to include those who like to keep close proximity to the royal family and somehow believe they have the same level of entitlement. While reviewing another week of things that make zero sense, I caught this interview with a young lady called Lisa Phillips, when she talks about her interactions with Andrew Windsor when she was 21 years old, just a year younger than my daughter is now. I deliberated for a while whether to play the whole interview because it is quite long and I don't want this to turn into an extra long video, but I think for context it's necessary. So thank you for your patience while you listen to this clip.
First, though, our guest joining us now is bravely opening up in the hope of helping others.
When she was just 21 years old, former model Lisa Phillips suffered years of abuse by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, but buried her trauma so deeply that she didn't come to terms with what had happened until after his death.
Lisa is now one of the leading voices speaking out on his abuse, and she's here with us this morning in the hope she will encourage more victims to come forward. Lisa, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
It's an incredibly emotive subject, of course, and something you experienced firsthand, and we are talking about it regularly in the newspapers for all sorts of reasons. Just take us back to that period when you first met Jeffrey Epstein. How did you come into his orbit?
So I was in high school in Belgium, actually. My father was in the Air Force, worked at NATO. And so I just wanted to be a model like a lot of young girls in the 90s. And just started my career actually here in London, and then traveled around the world a little bit, South Africa and Greece, went to Los Angeles and Miami, and then I was ready for New York City.
Yeah.
So I moved there in late 1999.
Yeah.
It was with a great agency, and booked a really important job for a cover of a magazine and a spread. And so I flew with the crew down to Tortola. It's a little island next to St. John's, St. Thomas in the area. And one of the young girls said to me, we have a day off. Why don't we go to my friend's island nearby? And so, I just trusted her. And since I had some free time, I just went with her to the island, and that ended up being Jeffrey Epstein's island.
So Jeffrey Epstein sent a boat for you to bring you across. You were there with a friend that you were working on the shoot with. So nothing really made you feel as though, actually, no, I shouldn't do that.
No, nothing was out of the ordinary, not at all. I just thought this would be a great experience. She said he was her mentor, and she trusted him. And
Yes.
So
Did you have any understanding of who he was at the
No,
time?
nothing like that. No, I had never heard of him.
You'd never even heard of him?
No.
What was that experience going to that island like then?
Well, it was a beautiful island, and we played in the pool. I had noticed at the pool there was like an older gentleman and some younger girls, and then got cleaned up, went to dinner, and then at dinner is when we were, just talking and hanging out, having some delicious seafood, and that's when I met Jeffrey Epstein. He walked up and greeted himself to me, and sat down and focused his attention on me for a couple hours.
Yeah.
He already knew the other girls at the table, so he asked me a lot of questions about my childhood and where I grew up. And I had mentioned I moved to Oxford, England when I was 2 months old and spent my first few years of life here. And he thought that was very interesting.
And what were your initial perceptions of him? What was he like?
Charming.
Yeah.
Highly intelligent. And he was the type of person that got into your psyche and made you think about things, questions that most men don't ask you. So it was more of a mentorship. That's true.
Did he go on to say he could help you?
No, it was nothing like that. He was just asking me my ambitions,
Right.
and my goals, and wanting to know more about me in that way and what I was into.
Okay.
Right.
So he had no reason at that point to suspect that he was going to be anything other than sort of generous and welcoming and engaging with you and potentially, as connected as he is, but it was at that point, there was nothing suspicious about the whole thing.
No, I just went there really just to spend the day there. I wasn't thinking anything really about him. And he was very friendly. I could tell he had this mentorship with the other young girls as well, and they respected him and looked up to him. So I did feel that and felt very safe in his presence.
I think it was on that first visit as well, you claim that you saw Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor on the island.
Well, he had asked me after I told him that I'd lived in England. He said, "Would you like to meet a prince?" And at that moment, this person walked up and greeted and said hello, and it was brief, and met a prince, and then he walked away.
Was that quite surreal? Were you aware he's no longer a prince, obviously, but were you aware who Prince Andrew was at the time?
Well, because I had lived in England,
Yeah.
I was a small child.
Sure.
Of course, I was aware of the royal family, and the fact that he was prince was kind of exciting. Like, wow, I get to meet a prince. That's really exciting. But as he walked away, I didn't really think anything about it after that.
And was he there in the pool? When you said on that first day, when you were hanging out by the pool, was he there then?
Well, I recognized him as the gentleman that was in the pool with the other young girls.
I understand.
Well, one young girl in particular that he was frolicking with.
Right.
He has always strongly denied all the allegations that have been made against him, which is really clear that we say that, of course. When did your experience with Jeffrey Epstein, which up till this point had been nothing other than quite exciting, I'd imagine. When did that take a turn, Lisa?
So it took a turn on the island. So later that evening, there was a knock at the door, and one of the younger girls from earlier opened up the door and said that Jeffrey was ready for his massage. Just like nonchalant, just like ready for his massage. And the other girl that brought me there knew what was going on. But I hadn't known. I was just like, what? Massage? I don't know how to give a massage. And but they told me, no, you have to. He's requesting that you give a massage. And so I just, I was on an island, so I didn't really think I, could say no. And the girl said, just go do the massage. So I went with her into his room, and there was an actual massage. It's when I saw now this man naked on a massage table, and proceeded to give him a massage with the other girl. And that massage turned into an assault.
What went through your mind at that point? Because exactly like you said, you find yourself, and I'm putting myself in, you find yourself in the middle of the ocean on an island, somewhere that you don't really know, and you don't know the ins and outs of it all. I would have been really quite frightened.
So I was frightened.
Yeah.
But I was just frozen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say or what to do. And it's an odd thing of how at ease he is, and how nonchalant he is about everything. And he had spent hours, I felt like I had looked up to him and felt some type of connection to him. And then that happened. So I was very confused about why this was happening. And then the other girl wouldn't say too much.
Right.
And so, went to sleep that night, just wide awake, looking at the ceiling, like, what just happened here? Just wanting to get off that island.
Yeah.
The boat came the next day, and I, rushed as quick as I could and got on the boat, and we left.
Right. And then what happened next? When was your next dealing again with Epstein? Did you speak on the phone? What happened, and how did you try and process that?
Well, I didn't want anything to do with that man.
Right. Yep.
Went back to New York, continued on with my career. Now I have a different feeling about myself, because, when you go through something like that, it's you put a lot of blame on yourself.
Of course.
So that started happening. And then his secretaries would call me profusely. They would call me almost every day, wanting me to go back and meet with him. And at the time, I didn't understand. I understand now.
Yeah.
But back then, I didn't understand why. And so maybe a few months passed, and then he called me. And that's when he said, I remember your big goal that you told me on the island, and that you wanted to become a model with a particular modeling agency. That was always my big dream. And he said, I know the owner, and I told her about you. And so I agreed. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe he's not a bad guy. Maybe he wants to make up for what he did to me. And so I agreed and went and met with this agency and signed on to this model agency.
Yeah.
Not knowing at the time,
That was part of his process. It was part of his grooming. It was part of his way of insidiously wheedling into your life again, even though you'd sort of been trying to keep him at arm's length.
Exactly.
Gosh, it's heartbreaking listening to you sort of talk this through. And I understand that actually it wasn't till after he died that you really started to appreciate just what you had been through and the assault you went through at his hands.
Yeah, it was very confusing back then. I didn't understand. It was hard to get out of his web. And now being with this agency that was also
Connected
in some ways, right? And so, something horrific had happened to one of my girlfriends, and so I confronted Jeffrey about it. And that was the end of speaking with him. We started thinking and talking amongst each other back then. This is 2003, 2004, and realizing this man is not who we thought he was. And now we know who he is, but we only had just the tip of the iceberg back then of just wondering, like, who is this person? And none of it made sense.
And to be honest, Lisa, I still feel as though we've got just the tip of the iceberg
here
right now. I mean, you say that back then, but even now. And what would you like to see happen next? In a perfect world, how would you like to see the next few months, years play out?
I am still learning
Yeah.
about this world, right? So I only spoke out in 2019, and it's been 6 years. And I spoke out because Virginia Giuffre, right? She was making some accusations, and I was remembering, like, wait a second, that could possibly be the girl I saw on the island. And I believed her and her story because of things that I had witnessed or heard back then.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to not talk about my story, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to support her and other survivors, that this was a big thing that they were saying, but it was true. And many people in the public don't want to believe survivors. They want to victim blame, victim shame, and say they always want to look at the abusers, especially if they're well known, you know, as God. And no, they make mistakes, and sometimes they make very big, dark mistakes. So I wanted to support her and others.
You've got your podcast, which you're bringing those survivors together to share their stories. You've written a memoir as well.
In the process.
In the process of writing a memoir, which I'm sure will be really important for you, but also for those other people that have been through what you've experienced. Prince Andrew is no longer a prince. His titles have been taken away. He denies everything that happened. He denies all the accusations. But what did you make of that, and what's happened to him over the last month here in the UK?
Well, unfortunately, Andrew was a big part of my story and why I started speaking out. The only reason why I started speaking out. I continue to support survivors. That's my whole mission right now. But hearing that made me very happy, and it made me very happy for Virginia. Because that's what she was fighting. She was fighting to let the people understand what she went through, how it's impacted her life, and how she's been caught up in the cycle of abuse.
Since she was a little girl. Right?
Since she was a little girl and until the end, you know, domestic violence. So
we did approach Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor for a response on the allegations. We didn't hear back. He's always vigorously denied all the accusations against him. In a statement last month, he said that after discussions with the King, he had decided to give up his royal titles to put my duty to my family and country first. Lisa, do you think we'll ever see the Epstein files? What's in them?
in its entirety, no. But little by little, they're exposing a little more, and we're learning a little more. And they're connecting the dots. But I think there's a lot of darkness in those files, and they probably don't even know how to process it all. And they do need to protect the survivors. A lot of them were very young at the time, so I think it's a process of figuring out exactly how to trickle it out to the people.
Yes.
You know.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. You spoke so eloquently.
Thank
you very much. Very nice to meet you, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. If you've been
At this point, the constant denials by Andrew, and Trump not wanting to answer questions at the end of press briefings, just adds to the buffoonery. Meanwhile, we're actively discouraged from challenging the integrity and the mental fortitude of these so-called leaders.
Today I want to talk about free speech, because I know that in the United Kingdom they want to impose something called Sharia law. And I do not like Sharia. I love Sharia. I spent a very good time in North Sharia with my good friend Kim Kardashian. This is all happening because of a mayor in the United Kingdom called Chaka Khan, and he is a very bad man and a very bad mayor. And I know a good mayor, a mayor called Mayor Quimby, and he is a great mayor, very great mayor. A lot of people have been screaming at me, release the Einstein files. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to release the Einstein files, and you'll be very surprised that I'm in a great deal of them. Einstein thought I was very, very clever and bright, and I spoke to him many times, and he said I was a very, 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 very good prospect. I took Jimmy Kimmel off the air. I'm going to say it. I took Jimmy Kimmel off the air because he had bad ratings, bad talent, and nobody was watching him. I asked the First Lady, Melania, I think that's her name. I said, do you watch Jimmy Kimmel? And after she stopped crying, she said no. Oh, the teleprompter seems to have stopped working, so that's okay. It's okay. I'm going to use my brain My tie is red.
Drip feeding information is what the powers that be seem to enjoy doing, and when it comes to that infamous list of island visitors, there are a number of names I wasn't expecting to see on this list, but I was not expecting to see Charles's name, which may provide a little more clarity as to the reason why he so desperately wants to put a significant distance between him and this saga. So when the media tells us, almost begs us, to feel sorry for Charles in his current state of frailty, this is simply another tactic to distract us from what's really going on within the confines of the British royal family. I'm going to speak personally for the next few moments. In the corporate world, I previously worked in a highly specialised environment where the endless flow of money came with access to things that were not above board, let's say. Initially, that lifestyle and the bright shiny things that came along with it were extremely seductive, but it also bordered on the demonic. After you get over being groomed with lavish dinners in luxurious London hotels and eateries, and being offered hundreds of thousands of pounds for projects that have not even been started, let alone completed, you realise very quickly that these are traps that have been set because these millionaires and billionaires want to effectively own you. But when you're of a certain age and have been through enough life-altering experiences to be able to smell the BS from 10 miles away, even the glamour of London luxury every other week cannot compensate for being in the tedious company of a group of wealthy individuals whose one goal is to accumulate even more wealth to relentlessly pursue a hedonistic lifestyle. These individuals are devoid of a moral compass, and they must have their ego stroked continually because that is what they're used to. I will never be able to share publicly what I witnessed and what I discovered, but I can honestly thank God for blessing me with an inquisitive mind and a non-complicit attitude, because I can go to bed every single night with a clear conscience. It doesn't matter how many times Andrew Windsor denies the accusations or Donald Trump wants to run away from reporters' questions. To me, the circumstantial evidence is enough to suggest that these so-called men have simply done what their forefathers have always done over the centuries, which is to deliberately target and exploit young, impressionable girls and women with little to no economic resources. Thankfully, 50 years ago in the UK, the Sex Discrimination Act meant that women could now become financially independent. Because before then, you couldn't even open your own bank account, let alone apply for a mortgage without a male guarantor. And I'm sure that there are countless men in the 21st century who wish we could go back in time. But that hasn't stopped this particular cohort from targeting and exploiting other so-called minorities when it comes to displaying power, economic or otherwise. Speaking of which, William wants the general reflection of his recent Brazil trip to be entirely positive. He does not want you to be reminded of the level of disrespect displayed before he even got on the plane to go out there. This article, which I'm not going to read in its entirety because a lot of it goes into detail about the Amazon region's sustainability program and the culture of the food, was published on France24.com on the 4th of November 2025, and the headline reads, "Why an Amazon chef said no to a vegan dinner for Prince William event." Saulo Jennings, a chef from Brazil's Amazon region, is so passionate about the rainforest's flavours, like the massive pirarucu fish, that he refused to cater a vegan dinner at an environmental awards ceremony hosted by Britain's Prince William. The 47-year-old chef is, however, ready to impress heads of state at the COP30 meeting in the Amazon this week, with an immersive dinner showcasing both plant and animal ingredients from the world's largest rainforest. Jennings was appointed a UN Gastronomy Ambassador in 2024 and has cooked for presidents, diplomats, and even Mariah Carey. Born and raised on the banks of the Tapajós River in northern Brazil, where he opened the first of his 6 restaurants 16 years ago, Jennings told AFP that sustainability for him is about balance. Question: why did you decide not to cook for Prince William and 700 guests at the Earthshot Awards dinner in Rio de Janeiro this week? Answer: the request I received was to create a 100% vegan menu, and I explained that I didn't feel comfortable signing off on such a menu because my work is precisely to show that the Amazon is sustainable, and this includes the fish. I even suggested making an Amazonian menu with mostly vegetable dishes, but also including sustainably managed fish, which ended up not being accepted. Earthshot declined to comment. And even with this, the British media have the unmitigated gall to accuse Harry and Meghan of being tone deaf. I'm referring, of course, to their attendance at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party last weekend. I'd love someone to explain this illogical nonsense to me. If photos of them on Kim and Chris's respective Instagram accounts were subsequently deleted due to a supposed snub, wouldn't the snub have been not to invite them in the first place? I actually have those photos here, but out of respect for Harry and Meghan, I'm not going to include them. But here's the actual reason why they were removed.
Let's go ahead and address the crowd that was convinced Kim Kardashian and Kris Jenner were throwing shade at Meghan and Harry. The way some of you jumped and pointed at those deleted photos and immediately started screaming snub was almost impressive. You were so sure the Kardashians were sending a message. You were so sure the Sussexes were being iced out. You were so sure you had the tea. And now the kettle is empty. And you're the ones who look parched. Because the truth, straight from people, is that the photos were removed for one reason only. Meghan and Harry didn't sign off on them being posted. That's it. Not shade, not drama, not some catty Hollywood moment, just simply boundaries the Sussexes have every right to enforce. You need to start learning not to sprint to the wrong conclusions, especially about those two, because now you look stupid. Meghan and Harry move with intention. They protect their image. They handle their business quietly and professionally. Meanwhile, some of you saw photos disappear and turned it into an entire soap opera in your head. And now you're eating crow. How does it taste? Bitter? They were literally respecting a consent form. Imagine that. The Kardashians showing more respect for Meghan and Harry's boundaries than online haters and the British tabloids. So to the people who are gloating, sit down and shut the up. How many times do you want to keep looking like fools? Watching your bitter, unhinged narratives collapse in real time is as ever delicious. Next time, before you jump to shade, remember this moment. Because once again, the story wasn't what the haters hoped for. And now they're looking like the sad, pathetic idiots they really are. Stay mad.
The hushed tones of crickets and tumbleweed are all you'll ever hear when the leftovers enjoy the company of A-listers. And by no means is Diana a leftover. But the media was cheerfully celebrating when John Travolta was twirling Diana around on the dance floor in the White House 40 years ago, back in 1985. However, Meghan, who actually grew up around that community and knows exactly how the mechanics of the whole industry operates, together with Harry, who is fulfilling a wish that Diana didn't get to by moving to the US, will both always be reported as the irrelevant couple, the has-beens who no one wants anything to do with, even though there is more than enough evidence to refute those ridiculous claims.
People need to stop acting like Harry and Meghan committed a social crime by attending Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party. They didn't crash the event, they were invited. And when you're invited, you go. That's basic manners. Let's also not pretend this was just another Hollywood birthday party. This was a power room. You had Harry and Meghan standing alongside Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce and Jay-Z, Mariah Carey, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Tyler Perry, Ted Sarandos, and Nicole Avant. That's not a party. That's a networking summit. A convergence of media, money, music, tech, and global influence, all under one roof. You don't miss a party like that. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the Kardashians, but I understand the purpose of going. It's a power move. You show up, you connect, you build bridges, you don't burn them. You stay visible. That's how influence works. That's how legacy gets expanded. It's not about liking everyone in the room. It's about recognizing the value of the room itself. Now, if we're talking about etiquette, let's bring in the authority on the subject. John Bridges' How to Be a Gentleman. A gentleman considers any invitation an act of generosity and kindness. He accepts or declines it as promptly and as graciously as possible. A gentleman never waits for something better to turn up. Meaning, you don't weigh invitations like status symbols. You don't decline because you think you're above it. You show respect to your host. You show gratitude for being invited. That's what refinement looks like. And yes, I own the book. It actually goes right there. So when Harry and Meghan accepted Kris Jenner's invitation, they weren't seeking attention. They were practicing proper decorum. They showed up, paid their respects, and left the noise outside. That's elegance. That's restraint. And if we're being real, the people criticizing them wouldn't have turned down that invite either. They just wished they'd been on that guest list. Because what Harry and Meghan did wasn't scandalous. It was smart, polished, and perfectly in line with the timeless rule of etiquette. A gentleman and a lady always honors an invitation.
Furthermore, I'm prepared to be corrected, but I'd be willing to bet that the party invitation didn't say the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but simply Harry and Meghan, which may perhaps serve as a clear indication why royal entitlement means absolutely nothing. So guys, I am going to try and wrap up this video as briefly as I can, but it's going to be difficult because I have so many random thoughts with regard to recent events. I wanted to talk about two aspects, two labels effectively given to Harry and Meghan. The first one is tone deaf. I find it absolutely laughable. Tone deaf because Harry and Meghan were in a room full of wealthy, powerful people. And the assertion was, while all these people were in one room, there's starvation going on elsewhere in the world. Starvation has been going on since time immemorial. Harry and Meghan do as much as they can through their Archwell Foundation to alleviate social suffering. There is a list currently of all the support that they're giving to, I think it's 6 outreach programs, including aid for Jamaica with regard to the recent hurricane. You can't tell me they don't do anything to help. Tone deaf is the level of wealth that was in the room at the state banquet that Trump attended in the UK recently, this same UK where we have a significant number of kids living in abject poverty. Because if you're going to tar one group of people with one brush, tar the other group of people with the same brush. That mountain of food while children are going to bed hungry. Kids are suffering. When you talk about tone deaf, have the same energy for the Royal Institution who have a long table with all of those guests. You know, influential people, mega wealthy people. They may not be as famous as the Kardashian-Jenner event, but they still have a level of wealth that can change the situation for millions of people across the globe, but no one says anything. Tone deaf is William not respecting the culture of the country he's visiting by making a request for 100% vegan menu, automatically associating that with climate change advocacy when that is simply not true. And if you are so inclined, feel free to read that France24.com article, which goes into detail about why the two are not the same. Tone deaf but typical is William reportedly using public funds, i.e. our money, to travel around 5,500 miles via private jet to save the planet. However, in the interest of fairness, it's also been reported that William took a commercial flight supported by the Earthshot Prize and the British Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Somewhere amongst all of that, a private jet was taken and we paid for it. You literally cannot make this stuff up. The other tea I wanted to talk about was tacky. The second label that's been attributed to Harry and Meghan. Tacky because they went to a Kardashian-Jenner event. Many people don't like the Kardashians. They don't offend me. I'll watch their shows, but I don't follow them. And something occurred to me. Remember what I said about women gaining financial independence? These women, regardless of whether you love them or hate them, these women are economically powerful, and I think that's the reason why they are disliked. You know, put to one side the shenanigans they get up to, all of the madness that goes on. Take that all out of the equation. They hold too much wealth. They hold too much power as women. Too much for some people's liking. A lot of people don't like that. You know what tacky is for me though, guys? David Beckham. Beggy Beckham, as one of my house guests referred to him months ago in the comment section under one of my videos. To this day, when I think about David Beckham, I think about that comment and I laugh. So Beggy Beckham has finally got his knighthood. Him pretending to be all humble when this is what he wished for decades and decades. And on top of that, Posh Spice, you know, she manifested her poshness because she finally got what she wanted. Her ultimate goal of becoming a lady in royal circles. And this is why she and William's wife have such an affinity, because they both social climbed. They had an ambition, they were single-minded, and they got what they wanted. But that is the same category they want to put Meghan in. It's like, did you not remember that Meghan is a self-made millionaire? She was self-made before she set eyes on Harry. They always seem to forget that part. I don't know about you, but what I find extremely tacky is Victoria, now Lady Beckham, she was too posh to push. Now she's too posh to open a door. She literally waited for this person to come and open the door before she stepped through. That's not very becoming, is it? That's very entitled. And had Meghan done this, waited for someone to come and open the door for her, refusing to touch the door handle, that's the end of the world. That's the end of the world, guys. Tacky would be allowing another knight of the realm, Jimmy Savile, to retain his knighthood. We know that the man's dead, okay? And his knighthood expires upon death. We get it. But since the institution is so into symbolism, and Charles has been so symbolic by removing titles from his brother, albeit Andrew is still alive, in the current climate and directly tied to what is going on with his brother, would it not be symbolically positive for Charles to announce that he is posthumously removing Jimmy Savile's knighthood? Let me remind myself, Jimmy Savile is Charles's best friend, so I guess that's not going to happen. Guys, this is so random. This is so random. But knowing how strategic Harry and Meghan are, tone deaf and tacky are not labels I would affix to them. And it's not because I am a supporter of them. Objectively speaking, those labels don't make sense. Anyway, guys, this is so random, and in my randomness, I'm sure I've offended so many people. Nevertheless, if your thoughts were provoked in any way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you shall catch me in the next video.